Okay, so welcome to Lesson 7, Layer Basics. In this lesson, you'll be learning how to do the following. You're going to organize artwork on layers, create, view, hide, and select layers, arrange layers to change the order of the artwork in the photograph, transform and rotate layers, apply special effects and filters to layers, apply text to layers, add adjustment layers, and then save a copy of a file with the layers flattened. So go ahead and download the Lesson 7 files. So I'm going to open Lesson 7 folder. I'm going to right click and open with. And I'm going to open with Adobe Bridge. It's here. If it's not located here, you can choose another app, go through and find Adobe Bridge. You don't necessarily have to use Adobe Bridge. You can just use open it directly in Photoshop. Now, I want to make all the settings the same, so I'm going to click on the flag, or if you're on a Mac, just find your Adobe Photoshop. And I'm going to, when I click on this, I'm going to hold down Control-Alt-Shift on a PC or Command-Option-Shift on a Mac. So I click on it, and I'm going to hit Control-Alt-Shift. So I click on it, and I'm going to hold it. Now, I may not do anything, so I'm going to hide this. And if you see, there's a Photoshop dialog box comes up, and you go ahead and hit yes, delete the settings file. So everything should be back to default. So I'm going to go back to Bridge, right click it, and hit open. And here is Skip. Now this photo is 4:3. I wanted a 5:7 because we're going to make a postcard. So I'm going to click on the crop tool, go down to 5:7. Notice that it's a vertical 5:7. So if you click on the two arrows, it'll make it a horizontal 5:7. And I'm going to just slowly just make it bigger so that it uses the top and the bottom full of the photo. And then I can click on the check mark up here or double click on the middle of the photo. Notice that there's a white patch here. So I'll show you how to get rid of that. So if you go to this fourth tool from the top here, click on it. And we're going to go down to Magic Wand and we're going to click on it. Now we're going to do a content aware fill, but to make it look seamless, we need to expand the selection so that there's not a tiny little line there. So we're going to go to select, to modify, and then we're going to expand it by 10 pixels. And then we're going to go edit, content fill aware. It'll automatically try to pick the best pixels. I think it looks good, so I'm going to simply hit OK, and then it should go away. Now notice that there is a background copy up here and a background layer here. So the copy has the actual strip on it. So we're going to actually flatten the layers here to make them all one layer again. And then we're just going to go select and then deselect. So then we have a 5:7 photo of Skip on the green screen. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the select subject option, and it'll analyze the photo and try to select your subject from the background. It should be pretty easy to do that on here because he's on a green screen. But I'm noticing already that there's a little bit of a selection issue here and here, and then also down at the bottom it's not that green is selected. I don't want that. I want Skip to be completely separate from the green. So I'm going to scroll in with the Magic Wand tool. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and notice a little tiny plus next to the Magic Wand. I'm going to click on it and click on it, and it's going to fix it. Now if I hit the Alt key on a PC or Option key on the Mac, it'll become a minus. So if I go here and minus that, it'll remove the green. And then I'm going to go closer here and I'm going to remove that green right there too. Plus this here, make it look a little bit nicer. And I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'm going to hold that Alt key down or Option key on the Mac, and I'm going to remove the green here. So here, it looks pretty good. Chip is selected. Now, a lot of people will just delete the background. I want to keep it in case I feel like I made a mistake later on. So if you, on the layers panel, this button right here is a create a mask. It'll mask out the background. And there you have it. You'll see that it's still here, but there is a mask covering it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the bridge, and I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to drag this photo and drop it right on top of Skip. And then I'm going to hit OK. And notice how the photo doesn't quite match here and here. So we could have resized it before we actually hit OK, but I wanted to show you the other way of doing it. So I'm going to drag this layer so it's behind Skip, so Skip is in front of it. Then I'm going to go up here to the Edit panel to transform and scale. Now I'm going to scale, looking here, it's going to scale this layer here, which is fine. That's what I want to do. And then I'm going to slowly just bring it up bigger here so that it completely covers the photo, and I'm going to bring it down here. So then Skip looks pretty good right there. And once I'm done, I'm going to double click in the middle, and that looks pretty good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to change out the sky. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. Using the magic wand tool, if you right click on it, you can use the quick selection tool or the object selection tool. If you don't have a very powerful machine, the object selection tool can actually freeze your machine because it takes a lot of resources. So I'm going to use the quick selection tool. And I'm just going to simply click on the blue sky once, and it's going to click most of it, and then I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to keep selecting it. So it looks pretty good. It gets almost all that sky over there. Then we'll go over here, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and notice that it's clicking on that. It's okay. Skip is not really there. So to make it not confusing, I'm going to hide the skip layer. So you see it's pretty good, except for there's part of the roof right there that's still there. We could get rid of it. It doesn't really matter because we're going to cover it up anyways. But let's see if we can fix that. I'm going to hit the Alt key, and the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac will deselect that area. So that looks pretty good. And now the sky is selected here. And again, we're going to use the masking, but if I click on the mask, because I selected this, it'll mask everything else out. So I want to inverse the selection. So I'll go under selection to inverse, and now I'll hit the mask tool, and you'll see the sky disappears. It's masked out. So we're going to simulate some clouds. This photograph had good clouds, but some photographs just don't have very good clouds. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the foreground color here, and I'm going to select a certain color that I already had looked at. So this is a 48 red, and I'm going to tab down to 138 green and 174 blue, and I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to go under Filter, Render, Clouds. And it'll render some clouds, and they look kind of cheesy, but I just want to show you how they work. It's not too horrible. You'll ignore them after a while. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the Fieldhouse layer. Again, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to Bridge. We're going to grab the logo, and we're going to drop it in there. And the reason why we clicked on the Fieldhouse layer is because then when we drop something in, it'll drop it on top of there. So looking at this, the logo is still active. I want to make the logo at about 30%. So I'm just going to type in 30, and then I'm going to drag the logo up here. And then I'm going to hit the check mark, and it looks pretty good right there. Now, I think Skip is covering it too much, so I'm going to click on the Skip layer, go to the Move tool, and I'm going to use the arrow keys and the Shift key to move him 10 pixels at a time over so that you can see the logo a little bit better. Looks a lot better to me. So we want to add some words to this. So let's click on the horizontal type tool. And we're going to pick a font, something like Impact. Impact is a sporty font. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger by typing in 145 in the font size. I'm going to center justify it, and I'm going to double click and pick a cool color like 002 C4F, which is the official blue color of SE4. And I'm going to click smack in the middle right here. I'm going to type in welcome. Now, if it's not in the right place, just select the move tool and move it where you want. So that looks kind of boring and it's hard to kind of see. So let's create some special effects on the welcome font. So if you click on the FX and select bevel and emboss. So bevel and emboss has all the same in this menu item, all the same items as if when you click on the FX key. So you can go through them all. So inner bevel is what I'm going to select. I'm going to select smooth. Depth is going to be 251. Size, I'll do 50. Soften, 0. And everything else, I'm going to keep the same as the default. Next, we'll click on the word stroke. Make the size 27. Inside, normal. Opacity is going to be 59%. And color is black. And then the last effect we want to do is called pattern overlay. So click on pattern overlay. It should be normal. Opacity should be 21%. Again, you can adjust these if you want a little bit. Angle 0, scale 150. And then click this little arrow and we'll select water. And I'm going to do the first wave pattern. And select OK. And then you can see it's slightly in there. So again, we'll select back onto the skip layer. Select the horizontal text tool. Still the same settings as before. Change the font to 120. Click under welcome. And type in 2 SC4 exclamation point. All right, so I'm going to click off of here. Notice that welcome has the great effects and 2 SC4 does not. And instead of having to go in and copying all those effects, we can simply hold the Option key on the Mac or Alt key on the PC and drag the FX to the 2 SC4 layer and release it. It'll automatically apply all those settings to it. Now, if you don't like the stroke on there, simply double click on the 2 SC4 effects, go to the stroke, and let's make the stroke size 15 and hit OK. So the last thing we want to do is we're going to click on the logo. So we'll click on the logo layer there, and we're going to add a special effect to that. So we're going to hit the effects, and we're going to go to outer glow. Here's the outer glow. So blend mode, we're going to do normal. Opacity, let's do 100%. Noise, 10%. Technique, we're going to make it precise. Spread, 0. Size, 51. Range, 50. Jitter, 0. But the most important thing is, let's double click on the color here and we'll make it the same at 002 C4F. And hit OK. And then you can see the border around the logo. Makes it separate a little bit from the background. So go ahead and look at this photo, admire it, and let's save it. So we're going to save it as a Photoshop document so you can go ahead and change things later on if you want. So we're going to call this lesson 7 _ postcard and hit save. And then once it's done saving down here, we're going to go ahead and save as a copy. And let's highlight copy and get rid of it. And we're going to save that as a JPEG. So we'll pull down and pull the JPEG up and hit save. And go ahead and you could select high or maximum, whatever you prefer, and hit OK. And it'll go ahead and save it. Then I want you to turn this postcard in for this lesson. We covered a lot of things. I covered a lot of things real quickly, but a lot of these can be applied to multiple other things. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I will talk to you next week.